Hi guys,
Hello.
it's Cara and Adam, and we are coming on today to talk about something that I think it's so normal, it's so common for marriage, but sometimes we feel like we're the only ones going through it. It's when you feel stuck in your marriage, when you've kind of hit this rut, and you maybe don't even realize you're in a rut.
Yeah, you're just going through the motions and you're not really connecting very well anymore.
Mm-hmm. Um, Maybe you're just in like we're just trying to survive, right? You're in like the survival mode. Like I got a lot going on, and I'm just marriage is fine. Like it's not really like something I have a lot of energy. I don't have energy to put into it, and so then you end up in this place where yeah, like Adam said, you're kind of going through the motions, and you're not necessarily growing. And then it can get to be a place where you feel very disconnected from your partner.
Yeah, it's almost like a roommate energy. Like you're just roommates, you're just kind of going through the motions, you're doing what has to be done, and you're interacting about the business of doing life, but you're not really connecting, you're not really growing in your relationship, you're not working on things intentionally in your relationship, and you're not increasing the connection with each
Yeah,
other.
maybe you're not feeling like very close intimacy, right? Like I know
Yeah.
there's been times for us where I've called it like parenting partners. Like I feel like all we are
Yes.
is parenting partners.
Yes.
Like, yes, we talk about parenting. We are focused. We're making sure that our kids are doing great. Well, as much as we can.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're just like getting through the days, but like, why? Like, we're missing like a spark in our own marriage. And, I think that this is like a phrase that most people know, the whole grass is greener, but like the grass is greener where you water it.
Which
And
is so
so,
true. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, we got to get back to remembering, hey, I actually committed to you, my husband, before I even committed to having kids, right? We're together before, we're going to be together long after our kids are gone, or business. Like, I committed to my husband before I committed to my work. And so he's my priority, and the grass is greener where I water it. And so I really want to focus on, I want to put some energy and some effort into marriage.
Yeah, you have to make the marriage a priority again. I mean, a lot of times you're stuck because you're not prioritizing that relationship anymore. You're prioritizing other things over that. And you have to get back to prioritizing the relationship, so that you can, put that energy where it belongs and where it's going to actually like reconnect you again.
So, like I said, we have gone through this.
Oh yeah.
We've been married for 18 years. And I specifically remember a time when we were really in the thick of this. Like, I was, and I think I even expressed my like concerns about that we were in this, kind of like.
I remember you saying like we feel like roommates or we feel like we're just friends and we don't feel like we're actually like married.
And in fact, I think we were in this for on and off for like years.
Yes.
Because okay, so we have four of our kids were born like a year and a half or so apart, and so it's like breastfeeding baby, and
Yes.
at the same time I'm working as a personal trainer and as a fitness instructor.
And I was just starting a
And
new career as a plumber, so I was like just
for some of it. I mean, some of it you were starting a new career as a pastor, then you were starting a new
yes.
career as a plumber.
Yeah.
And so it was just like a lot of transition, moving, lots of, life stresses, lots of babies, lots of giving your energy to like, some of it is kind of, you do kind of get in a survival mode, right? Like when you're a new parent, you're not sleeping very well. You kind of almost do get to this like survival mode. And
Right.
so yes, the marriage is like, okay, well, I'm trying to just like survive my own body, right? My own health is trying to survive.
Yes.
And I mean, yes, we do need to take care of ourselves, but then the next thing is like the marriage, right? I mean,
care of the marriage and being really intentional about being connected again.
mm-hmm. And so I remember expressing that to Adam, and it was kind of falling on
It
deaf
was a
ears.
struggle. Yeah, I know. Well, we were in financial stuff too, so I was really focused on work stuff, trying to like trying to just make money and do these things, and I was tired coming home, but none of that is an excuse. Those are all things that needed, I needed to take care
I'm
of
sure you
myself.
used it as an excuse.
Oh, I did. Oh, yeah, I did plenty at the time. Looking back, I
Yeah.
can see that's not an excuse, because and really, what's honestly very true too is that if you're not giving your marriage the energy it deserves, that actually will leak out into the rest of
Oh,
your life too,
absolutely. Absolutely.
because when you are really cohesive together and really strong in your relationship and you're really connected and you're very in a positive place between the two of you, that will spread out into all the other areas and all the other stresses. Everything else in your life will take on a different light and a different energy when your relationship with each other is very strong and you feel connected and whole, and you'll feel a lot more, able to deal with a lot of those stresses.
And the same thing's true the other way. When your marriage is in a stressful place, when it is surviving, you feel that stress, right? And it affects you so much. And so, and Adam was, yeah. So specifically, I think what you're talking about is when he did do his career move,
Yeah.
and we moved to a new area, and we had four. Did we have three? And then we had a
We had
fourth
three kids. We
there.
had a fourth there.
And they were all, young.
Very little.
And he's working. I mean, it's like he's leaving before I wake up in the morning. He's not coming home. And sometimes he's not coming home till the kids go to bed.
Yeah, as an apprentice, I was trying to
Yeah.
work a lot because I had to.
And we were in a really very strained
Yes.
financial
Yes,
spot.
we
Very,
were.
very strained. He was only making minimum wage. Wasn't it minimum wage?
It was close to that.
As a father of three.
Yes.
I mean, it was like
It had a schedule going up, but it was like the first few months were really really tough, and then it was like you got a little raise, and then so I knew what the schedule was, but for the first, I don't know.
So
Probably
he
2
is
years.
literally
Really.
he's trying to be the provider, but what's happening is I am feeling so alone
She felt
in our
pressure,
family
pressure in
because
that too. Yeah.
because he's basically not there. He's really he's not present. He's definitely not present with me as a husband. He's hardly present as a father.
And that was going from when I used to be at home all the time, because when I was a pastor, I would be home most of the time, not all the time, but so that was a transition.
So it was just a very strained, stressful, but also we were in a rut, and because, like I said, this went on and on and on. Because I think when you let it start like that, when you leave it in this place of this rut, this stuck feeling in your marriage, and you just leave it, it doesn't get better, right? It doesn't just magically get better. You don't just magically get connected.
That's not a place where you can be passive.
And that was what was happening for him.
I was being passive. I was like, the temptation for me is victim of circumstance. So like, oh, look at all these circumstances. Oh, I can't do anything. I can't change anything. Instead of having an idea that, okay, this is a problem. Okay, now what am I going to do about it? How am I going to fix this problem? Where am I going to put my energy so that it is maximum benefit to my family? And so instead, I was like, well, I just got to do this. I just got to do what I got to do. I'm just everything's coming at me, and instead of being intentional and proactive and taking charge of my life, I was letting the circumstances of my life take charge of me.
Yeah.
And I was leading us out of that place where we were disconnected, because I just had this a mindset that wasn't healthy for that.
And I actually, thinking about it, I'm like, I think I was so triggered by the way you were not showing up, right? You were basically I felt so alone. I felt abandoned by you. And so it was a very painful time.
Yeah, I was feeling a lot of stress.
And it definitely affected my mothering. Those are some of my just saddest memories as a mom. And so, you were saying before, it really affects everything. So you're not alone. All I had to say, you're not alone.
Exactly.
And we did get out of that too. So even if you're in a season like that and you're like, I don't know how this is going to get better, we're going to give you some steps, but just even that you're aware of it is such a big step, right? You're aware of it. You can start to have some healthy conversations about it and then start to implement some of these things. So the first thing is really to have those conversations, right? Reignite the communication. Instead of just the how are the kids, or what do we need done? What do we need from the grocery store? What are we making for supper? Do you need me to take out the trash? That kind of thing. Start the meaningful conversations again, where you're checking in hey, what are you struggling with that I can support you in? What are you feeling, about this? Or some of those meaningful conversations. And we have with our Healing Your Marriage course, this is exactly why we have that, is we have a weekly check-in with questions you can go through. And that has helped us.
That's a huge game changer.
So much. Yep. We use it. We still use it ourselves every single week.
Oh yeah. Because that regular intentional communication where it's on your schedule. We are going to talk about these things, and we're going to talk about meaningful things. We're going to give ourselves 20, 30, 40 minutes to really just hash out some really important things about our relationship, to just check in with each other.
Yeah.
It's a huge benefit.
Yeah. We have a couple questions to give you today even. So the first one is just get started today, guys. Ask your spouse these two questions. Yes. Just two, right? So what's something that you miss from when you first met? That's a fun question because it kind of brings you back to that like connected place and you're remembering things that you loved about them. So even if you're in a really painful spot, what is something that you really missed from when you were first, first met?
Yeah.
The second question is, what would make you feel more appreciated right now? So now we're back in like the present, and like, what would make you feel more appreciated?
Yeah, because when you're stuck in a rut, I mean, the appreciation is just not going to be there. Like that's one of the first things that's going to go. And so if you can really dial in on how can each of you feel appreciated again, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah. So the next thing is to go to the physical intimacy, to the, emotional intimacy. So rediscover that. And I'm not just talking about sex, okay? I'm talking about all kinds of physical, rubbing.
Non-sexual touch.
Yes, rubbing non-sexual the shoulders.
Touch, holding hands again.
Yep.
Or like, just, touching.
Massage.
Massage is good too.
Husbands, right? Your wives want a massage.
Yes. I think it was that when I started rubbing your feet. Was it out there?
Oh, no.
I don't know when that started, but yeah. So like I would give her a foot rub at night. And so that was, I mean,
it does. No, it does. It is meaningful. I do appreciate it. And sometimes even that like physical touch, he starts rubbing my legs too, usually.
Yes.
And that can actually like become like a turn on. So, I mean, you never know, you know, it might take you to the next step. But that physical touch, I mean, sometimes, especially if your love language is physical touch, this can be a really, really big deal to get a hug, right? Maybe challenge yourself to give each other a hug every day. It's amazing to me how fast, if we're not being intentional, we can start to lose that physical touch, just like of kissing, hugging, and like longer hugs, not just like the quick, hug goodbye, but like, just letting your husband hold you. I mean, if we're not intentional with that, sometimes that can just...
Yeah, and that can be a really big sign. That can be a big sign that you're in a rut. If you're not sure you're in a rut, that could be an indicator that, we're in a bit of a rut now because we're not really touching each other very much anymore.
And if this feels really cringy to you, like, I don't want to be physically intimate in any way, like not even like holding hands or hugging. I know I was at that place at one point, especially at this time, because your passivity to me is like the biggest turnoff. Yeah. And I don't really even want, like, the masculine femininity, that really plays a part, because if I don't see him as like my strong man, I don't want to lean into him. I don't want, if I don't see him like as a safe place or as a, I'm like, hey, I'm like having more of my masculinity, then I'm like, I will depend on myself. Like I'm my own safe place. I put up like a, like a barrier, like, no, I don't want that because I don't feel safe.
Because she feels a need to protect herself in that situation because she's going through all these things in a sense alone. Then I mean, she's not going to lean into me for support if she doesn't feel like she's going to get support there. And I'm not a safe, strong place for her, where she can really like look at me and go, okay, I know he's got this. Definitely a huge... That's
a big area to look at for sure.
Yeah.
And then try new things, right? Like bring some new energy into your marriage. Plan new fun experiences. Like try some new dates or start scheduling dates again. That quality time, that's a love language too. And it means a lot, especially if you always are wearing the hat of like mom and dad or your work hat. Then you can kind of almost forget who you are in this marriage. You kind of forget like just how do I even act like just a wife? I mean, there were times when we would, because we were very, very intentional, even through this time of scheduling like trips, one-on-one trips.
Yes, and those
Or,
were like the huge things that
yeah,
kept us connected.
they
Honestly,
really did.
those really made a big difference. Even
Yes.
when we didn't have a lot of financial, like
We made it a
we
priority.
made it a priority, and we made it work out.
And what happened was usually the first couple days were so rough.
Because we were trying to like almost get out of that rut
we were
again.
trying to remember like who are we as
Yeah.
just husband and wife, because we are just so used to being like
Yeah.
mom and him
Yep.
like being just like a worker, you
Yeah.
know.
So
whatever.
now what do we talk about? Now that we can't talk
Yeah.
about the kids, we're not going to talk
You
about
can talk
this.
about the kids.
Well, you can, but yeah, but we weren't. And so
When you're just trying to focus on your relationship, it's like if the relationship
Yes.
isn't really very strong and connected,
Yes.
then it can feel awkward. It can feel, or all those things that you've been holding, that those resentments that are building, they come out.
Yeah.
And you're like, you finally have the space to like say all the things that you've been feeling, and so it can be, and that's okay, right?
Yeah.
It's okay to work through those things, and if that was the only time and space we had to work through them,
it was good to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was still good to do it at that time. This is another time where husbands can start to be more intentional about being romantic with their wives. Like that can be really awesome. Like how I know back then, if I would have like all of a sudden just planned a date or done something, intentionally romantic,
Yeah.
come home with some kind of like gift for her that meant a lot, like that would have been instant, like sparks in that relationship again. So it's not hard to recover it again. You just have to be intentional and plan something and do something. And even just Google what are the 100 romantic things to do, and then try to start doing a couple of those things.
That's Adam's method.
Just to yeah. Well, not all of us guys are like perfectly understanding like what is romantic, necessarily. So that's something I need to educate myself about too sometimes.
Yeah. So, I encourage you just to like break the routine.
Mhm.
Get out of the routine that you're in with like this is what happens each day or whatever. And maybe even create like a couple's bucket list. Like what are some things you guys want to do together? That and it doesn't even have to be like it's something you can do this week or this month, but like just even having that vision,
that creates excitement. That creates excitement in your
connection
relationship.
again back.
Something to look forward to together, and that's really huge.
And that really leads us to the last big step, which is
to create a vision for your marriage. Without a vision, you have no direction. You're kind of just floating there, not sure what you're doing, where you're going. What is the purpose of us as a married couple? What is our like where are we headed? Where are we going? What are we trying to do as a family? The Bible even says, "Without a vision, the people perish," and that's very true of a marriage too. When we don't have a vision, then how are we going to like look forward to something? How are we going to be like intentional about where we're going as a couple? So this is a place where again the man really needs to step into a leadership role and initiate conversations about how like let's sit down and really come up with a vision for our family, and especially our marriage. And there can be some like I think it's good for each husband and wife to kind of reflect on it first. Like, what do I really want? What do I really want to see happen? What do I want out of this relationship, and where do I want to go with it? And then to come together and have a conversation about what that is, and then have a plan. When and how are we going to get there? Like as we agree upon where we want to go in our marriage. So you start to set little goals, like you look out into the future, like a year or 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, like where do we want to go with our marriage? What do we want it to do? And how is our marriage going to bring glory to God and serve a purpose in his kingdom too? So all of that is good to like consider and to really talk about as husband and wife.
And an example, because I know sometimes this concept might feel weird if you're not like, if you're like, I don't even know what that means, right? Like, what is a vision? What is an example? So for us, I think early on, it was a lot about like, especially when we were in the little kid season, it was a lot about like, our vision was we were going to continue to prioritize our marriage. So that's why we did those like trips yearly.
Yeah.
We were like, this is a non-negotiable for us. This is an important part of the vision for our marriage is we got to stay connected and prioritizing our relationship, even though we have all these,
Yeah.
very needy children.
And that really was, I mean, that's a key in getting us through those years. I really do feel like that was those were some of the greatest memories of those years.
Yeah.
We really stayed
Yeah.
connected, and
they were a lifesaver. And I think now, like, so we've gone through a lot of pain in our marriage. And so it became clear, like, God really put this vision on our heart, like, all this pain is going to be for more than just your growth. Like, yes, of course, we have grown so much, but I always knew that I was like, God's going to use this for more. And so that became our vision. Like, what are we going to do to serve others through the things that we've learned?
Right. And I think that is likely true of any marriage. I mean, some of the things that you're struggling with, maybe not on a grand scale, but on some scale, you're going to be helping. God's going to put opportunities before you to also help other people who are struggling in that same area, so that you can pour into them and give them support and love and advice in that season for them. So that is something to think about too. Like, where are you struggling in your marriage, and how might God choose to use that to help others?
Yeah. So, if you are like, okay, that's great, but we've tried some of that or whatever. If you need to get more help, that's what we're here for. And you can always, seek professional help from a counselor as well. But this is why we have our Healing Your Marriage course. This is why we have all the tools that we offer, because we want to help you. We want you to get out of that rut. We know that's not God's best for you.
Yeah.
And we want you to enjoy all of what He has for you in marriage. And so if you need coaching, right? If you want to coach with us, we would be happy to. Our course, it's available for you. The biggest thing is, if you get one thing out of this, I think the biggest thing is just take action, and then don't be afraid if it's not changing anything right away. It takes patience, right? And it takes that continued action. Yeah. So take action right away. We gave you some of those questions. We have some more questions also for vision. So
yeah, we do.
One is
check in.
Why, as you're thinking about creating your vision, why did God bring you together in your marriage? Why do you think, why did He bring you to that specific spouse? What could that be, right? The second one is, where are you right now in your marriage? So take a little
stock of the situation right now.
How are things going? And then what are you working on? What are you both working on individually or together? What are you working on? And then the third one is, where are you going? Where do you want to go with this marriage, as a couple? Where do you want to be in 1 year, in 5 years, in 10 years, 25 years even? Yeah. Start to think about that, dream about it, create that vision. And then, if you guys need anything, please, comment, reach out to us. We are available, and, we're here to help.
Yeah, definitely.